Clay, as we get into 0 Hour, the season finale for Star Trek Enterprise's third season, I have to ask, is this cold open, this teaser with the 3 reptilians standing around at a bar in their reptile spaceship eating mice, worst cold open the show has ever done? Top 5? Top 10? I find it pretty bad.
You've never cheersed a couple of rodents with your buddies before going out and destroying a planet?
I have to give the show credit for they at least did a little bit of putting the mice into empty mouth masks or something. Whatever happened to the mice, if the actors actually put them in their mouths and then spit them out once the camera was over or something, they attempted to do something with it. They didn't just hold them up. But I was actually looking. Terrible.
I was actually looking, and they do cut before they put them in their mouths. So I think they put fake mice in their mouths.
Okay. Yeah,
not 100% sure.
Yeah. They're not moving when they drop them in. That is probably just like a toy or a prosthetic or something.
Yeah,
I thought it was a bad cold open. Just, I mean, I guess it's sort of a recap to that point of what you're supposed to expect going in, but it's like it's the ultimate of just mustache twirling. They're like, and now we will destroy them, and then it cuts. It's so little information, and this is a series that does a lot of terrible cold opens. But I thought this one was. For where this one is in the end of this whole season-long arc, I was like, "Wow, that's the best cold open that you guys could come up with." That's pretty weak, I think.
Yeah, it honestly didn't even click with me as being bad because I expect so little of the cold opens of this show anyway.
Sure.
That ever since that one that was just waking up Trip so he could answer the phone, I've kind of shut my brain off during most of the cold opens, and they only register with me when they're exceptionally good. So
let's take a break. This one is not exceptionally good. Let's take a break. We'll play a clip from the episode, which is
pot meet kettle, right, guys?
It's called 0 Hour. It's the season finale of Enterprise, the third season. We're going to take a break. We'll play a clip. We'll come back and we'll break it down.
We won't be able to transport directly onto the control platform. It's too heavily shielded. We'll have to beam in and out, no deeper than this peripheral framework.
What if you need to board the weapon before your crewman completes her decryptions?
I'm taking her with me.
So she's hardly in any shape.
She's been there, Malcolm. That's where she deciphered the third launch code.
She was drugged. There's no reason to believe that she'll remember anything.
She's coming with me. I want you and your team to beam in right before we do. Secure the closest route to the platform.
If you succeed in creating the overload, what makes you think you'll be able to get out in time?
I'll give everyone a chance to get to the outer framework. You'll be in charge of helping Hoshi.
And you, sir?
I have no plans of dying on that weapon, Malcolm.
This is 0 Hour. It's the 24th episode of the third season. It came out on May 26, 2004. 11 out of 13 of the Temporal Cold War arc. Only 2 left of these guys to go. 25 of 28 in the Xindi Crisis. We have 3 episodes coming up in the 4th season that are going to be called Xindi Crisis arc episodes. Written by Rick Berman and Brandon Braga. Directed by Alan Croker. In-universe date is February 14th, 2154, 2161, and an alternate 1944. But we're not going to get to that right away. Mm-hmm. In this episode, with the weapon on its way to Earth, Archer leads a small team to intercept it before it can strike. T'Pol leads the Enterprise on a mission to destroy one of the spheres in the Expanse. So we did it, Claire. We made it to yet another season of Star Trek in general. This one's Enterprise's third season. Mm-hmm. We had a season-long arc of Xindi-ness. We have had a couple episodes towards the end here of chasing down the weapon. As the last 2 episodes where the crew is just ultimately chasing down this thing to see what's going to happen. Last episode we thought was fairly average, fairly middling, a lot of chasing. This episode is a little bit more chasing, although they do catch the thing at the end of it, and they manage to blow it up. What did you think of 0 Hour as specifically a season finale? Ignore the end. Let's not talk about the ending of this episode. Talk about everything up until the last 3 minutes of this episode.
Yeah, that's a big asterisk on whatever I'm going to say next. I thought it was pretty good. I The only thing left for them to do at this point is to stop the weapon from destroying Earth, and I thought they handled that stuff pretty well. I thought the action was engaging. I thought the appearance of Shran was great. Man, Jeffrey Combs just relishing being in the captain's seat on that ship.
Mm-hmm.
He is nibbling and munching on every bit of scenery he can get his teeth on, and he's fantastic. He
got
was
a lot of
auditioning.
emotion.
He was if this episode came out in the year of our Lord 2021, the internet response to this episode would be give Shran his own show. And for once, I would agree with them and say they should.
Shran or Combs is somebody else. I don't know if I could stand
Either
to see
way.
Shran show. Yeah,
just put Jeffrey Combs in the captain's chair and just let him go. But I mean, I think his performance as Shran is very fun, and I think he's like the only person on this show that actually has some character to him, and is kind of exciting to watch. Everybody else is pretty down the middle and bland. So when he shows up, it's always a pleasure. The polar opposite of that, however, is fucking Daniels, who I wanted to launch out of a goddamn cannon in this episode. I could not. Oh my god, I could not believe that shit in this episode. It was really, really annoying me.
Daniels is quickly going up the list of. I think Daniels has potentially a case for the worst Star Trek character of all time.
He's pretty high on my list. Yeah,
people will say like Loxana and stuff, but the annoying thing about Loxana is like the character is annoying, and Majel Barrett and everything does a good job, and the scriptwriters they make that character annoying, but within what she's supposed to be, she is a good. I guess I would say a good performance. It's just whether or not you want to have that character be in the show as much is a question that maybe you'd ask the writers, especially of TNG. Yeah. But she is what she's supposed to be. Daniels, I think, is a terrible performance, a terrible outfit, a terrible actor, mixed with a role that I don't understand, and that the show is just forcing constantly down your throat to accept him as something. He's awful. I don't know if we want to start with him, but I do want to talk about him for a little bit. I interrupted you, though, if you had more thoughts about 0 Hour as a whole.
Yeah, just aside from that, I thought it was pretty good. I thought the action was solid. I liked the final stuff when they're, doing the silly business about changing the light tubes on the. You put in the neon light tubes backwards, and the entire thing blows up. Sure, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was effective. Thematically, maybe not really much going on, but as far as an exciting episode of Enterprise, I think it was one of the better actiony ones that I've seen.
So I guess we disagree here. I don't hate this episode. I didn't think it was bad. I was a little bit surprised. To me, a lot of the action here feels either redundant or extremely predictable in a way that it's like there's a
sure.
They're kind of doing the Archer fight is really the is it Search for Spock where Kirk fights the Klingon at the end? I think it's
yes,
yes, it is Search for Spock.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That felt very much like that with the repeated kicks and everything. He's laying on the ground, he's kicking him and stuff, and it's that kind of a hand-to-hand combat thing. I think that Archer running in slow motion as the thing blows up is terrible. Quite frankly, I watched that. Yeah. I feel that this show does action in a way that even for me who generally doesn't like action, I really don't like Enterprise action. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, I was kind of startled by how much of this episode is groups of people standing in rooms talking about what they're going to do in about 15 minutes. There's a lot of that, and it's not interesting, and it's not even revelatory. It's just once we catch up with that ship, we're going to beam on. He's like, are we there yet? He goes, no, 5 minutes. Okay. Well, how about we cut it to Paul talking about what she's going to do for the next 5 minutes?
I'll be completely honest. As I was watching this, I didn't really register most of the dialogue in the first 15 minutes, and I knew that I didn't have to. Because I was watching it, and I was like, all right, I know what they're talking about to an extent, but it's not really landing in my head. And at no point did I feel like I needed to go back and find out, because whatever they were saying was clearly just like you're saying. It was bland, kind of talking in a room, wasting time to get to the good stuff. You weren't really doing.
It's not even
there.
It's not even there's no conflict with what they're doing. They're just, the only conflict is that they don't have, they're basically waiting for things to happen around them. And it's not a question of, is this the right thing to do? They're literally just talking about, like, yeah, when we get to this thing, I'm going to beam onto it, and then T'Pol's going to go shoot the sphere with an energy thing, and I'm going to beam onto this ship, and I'm going to try to blow it up. And you wait a long time for that to happen.
The only bit of like, excuse me, the only bit of like conflict you get out of it is when Archer and Reed are arguing about who's going to go lead the team or whatever, and then they both end up going anyway.
Yeah, I would say
they're both on the weapon, so who gives a shit?
Right, that's a good point, and I think I think in a better show, this opening sequence of events is maybe 5% them telling the audience what they're going to do, what the plan is, and 95% of it is sort of character scenes that, based on the season that you've gotten to this far, these are sort of the final scenes that the characters have with each other about the arcs that they've experienced. The only one that they do, and it's not even an arc, is that Archer talks to Hoshi for a minute, and because she's traumatized by being kidnapped, which has really no relevance to the season. It's only that it happened last episode, and they have to talk about it a little bit. It kind of fits the Hoshi thing about, she doesn't even really, she does kind of bring up the fact about Archer and her meeting initially, but it's only as this sort of weird throwback, instead of a Hoshi almost being like, I told you I didn't want to come to space, and look at what happened to me, which I think is more of an appropriate character beat for her, but I guess she's grown past that. But the show doesn't really spend time on that stuff.
Yeah, that's tough for her, because like, if you're playing that beat at that moment, then it's not exactly the most heroic beat to play for someone who's gone through what they've gone through at this point, you know, right before they go into the final battle. So I can understand why they didn't do that. The other,
I don't need that, I guess. So I guess my point would be that I don't need her to do that, but I was expecting more scenes along those lines of Trip and T'Pol have a conversation.
Hey, man, she tells him how old she is. That's a big deal.
That's way at the end, isn't it? When does that happen? Is that in the beginning?
That happens at the end. Yeah, I think that's after.
Yes,
because they haven't completely. She hasn't completely healed yet, and she becomes self-conscious about her cracking skin.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that would make sense.
I did think she was really good. I thought she played that scene really well. But going back to Hoshi, I think what you could do there is you could have Hoshi voice that opinion, but then have Archer reassure her and be like, well, look at what you have done, like that kind of thing, and build her confidence back up, because her whole thing at that point is her brain's broken, and her confidence is busted and everything, and so it probably does need a little bit more finesse than just hey, you got to go back on the ship with me, and her kind of freaking out a bit. But yeah, there's not even with like
there's no scenes like that really.
Yeah, even with the Xindi guys, there's not much like thematic stuff. There's no like if we succeed, this means the difference. This is the difference maker in all of the future of all our kind, or anything like that. It's just at the end they just kind of the one guy pops in and he's like, we put the council back together. The reptilians are, well, they'll be back, but
they'll be back. They'll be back.
Anyway,
they always walk out. It's always teenage runaways. It's like they'll just come back. Do you want those guys back? Haven't they betrayed you enough?
I know.
Cindy
well,
guys?
You know, I mean, I guess it depends if the point of the Xindi is that you can have multiple, not everybody on a planet is exactly the same. I guess you could extrapolate that out, that not every reptilian is a mutinous monster, but I'm going to say they probably get one of their senators taken away, or one of their electoral college votes taken away.
They lose a vote or something. They no longer have shareholder majority or whatever coupled with it. One very weird tangent here. I think it's this episode, right? They go with 3 out of the 5 codes. we can't launch the weapon immediately, which we could do if we have 5 out of 5, makes no fucking sense to me whatsoever, because the 3 out of 5 is just a vote whether or not you want to do it or not. It's not now that we have 5 out of 5, let's kill them extra quickly, but if we don't, let's kill them a little bit slower just because we might have some dissenting opinions amongst us. Made no goddamn sense.
That was a really weird extra detail they threw in there. I have to imagine because someone in the writer's room was like, why don't they just shoot now?
Yeah, why don't they just shoot now?
Well, I don't. Maybe they need to warm it up, and it warms up slowly if you only have 3 keys or something. I don't know.
I would have accepted the warm-up
detail.
thing. I guess the problem with that is, why don't they just start warming the thing up now as they're flying there, and then they can do it? But it's totally irrelevant. I think that...
Who's asking those questions though? Like, nobody ever asked that question about the Death Star. I mean, they build that in. They build that into the Death Star in at least. What is it? Is it at least Return of the Jedi? They build it in that it has to clear the moon or something like that. The moon has to be out of the way, so it has a clear shot at Endor or something. Or maybe that's the
less
first
a design
one,
flaw and more just bad timing, I guess, on the Empire's part. Yeah. I like. You mentioned the Xindi. I think the Xindi even feeds into it. I think it's a general problem of the season has not had anything to close at this point. Like, if you want to make a direct comparison to DS9 wrapping everything up and wrapping up the Founder War, there's a lot of stories that are being closed out at that point. And I don't think that Enterprise has the sheer number of characters that DS9 had that you kind of have to close out over the course of a couple episodes. But when you're down to Archer and Hoshi talking about the thing that happened last episode that isn't totally relevant, and the rest of the time is dedicated to explaining the chase that you're watching and why the parties are splitting up and what they're going to do, it's really disheartening that this show has chosen to wrap up the last 2 episodes in a very Enterprise style, which is just action for action's sake. And honestly, like, my eyes are glazing over. It's just like, God, like, I know they're going to catch this fucking thing, and I know it's going to be a fist fight, and that's the way it ends. But even if you want an action thing, I guess what my point is that I don't think this is well-crafted action in the sense that the chase is got my pulse going, and it's like, is something going to happen? Like, who's going to make the ultimate sacrifice here? Like, what's the cost that they have to pay to make this happen? It's really right down the middle. Everything you'd expect, a fastball right over the plate, and then you just hit it, and the show hits a single out of it, I suppose, would be my argument.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes when it got to the end. If we can include the last couple minutes for a second, I was very disappointed and upset by the ending of the episode, and. I was trying to figure out why, because I was like, well, cliffhanger, okay, time travel or something.
Well,
I don't know.
What do you mean by disappointed?
Well, I'll let you. I'll get there in a second.
Okay, sure.
I'm trying to figure out. I took a step back and I was like, well, maybe this is just like a cliffhanger, doing something different, and then it occurred to me what was bothering me, and it's that at the end of this story they've been telling for a whole season. Archer doesn't fucking learn anything. Like, there's no finish to the story for him, or really anybody, except for the fact that they save Earth. That's it. There's no real, like, catharsis or payoff to this my enemy is a person 2 theme that they've been throwing at us episode after episode. I think that's also why Daniels was really fucking annoying me in this one, because it's like none of that is involved in any of his stuff. Not to mention the fact that at no point does Archer go, why can't you do something about why can't they've got future people helping them? Can't you give me like a special gun or something? Like, he never questions Daniels.
Yeah, give me one of your spacesuits.
Yeah, give me that sweet black licorice thing you're wearing. It looks like it'd be great from running away from an explosion. But it's like you get to the end and they save Earth. Everybody's fine, but like it made me think, what was all of this in service of, other than them just saving Earth? And
because there's no
reason
story. That's
right.
That's the thing.
Reason I'm thinking
there's nothing to close.
The reason I'm thinking that is not because I'm wanting too much out of the show. It's because they were giving us all that stuff along the way. Or at least they were trying to. They were trying to give this thematic story that was going along with the actual stop the weapon plot that was going on. And then you get to the end, and it's disappointing because Archer saves the day a couple episodes ago by explaining that he has junk from the future that somebody left in his bathroom or whatever. And that's not satisfying. And then you've got these Guardian guys from the future who are not super satisfying because they come out of nowhere to be a villain that nobody really cares about at this point. And then you've got Archer not being present for the climax of what should be the climax of this story. And it doesn't feel like this is, especially given the way it ends, it doesn't feel like they're carrying this over into the next season at all. It seems like when the one Xindi guy there pops in and does the Leslie Nielsen from Airplane thing where he's like, I just want you to know everybody's counting on you. I'll see you later. And then he just like fucks off. And that's the end. That's like the culmination of the Xindi arc, is that guy going, well, the council's back together. The reptilians will get there eventually. Anyway, thanks, guys. We gotta go, and that's it. And it's just like
you won't see the Xindi again. This is the final appearance of the Xindi.
That's awful.
Gone.
It's terrible.
Yeah,
it's terrible. And it's like like if they had done that scene before the climactic battle, where Archer and those guys really kind of like come to terms or whatever, and they have that thematic moment where it all kind of plays out or whatever, then fine, I guess. But they don't ever do that. There's no real climax or resolution, anyway, to the story. Because if the climax of the story is Archer convincing them that they need to turn against the Guardians or whatever, there's no falling action or no resolution that comes after that pays off any of those changes or any of the character stuff that comes up to this point. The closest you get out of all these episodes is when Trip is like, man, it's too bad Dagger got killed. I kind of like that guy now that I don't hate his people. Like, that's about it. And it's really, I found it really dissatisfying.
Yeah. I mean, I would 100% agree with you. I find it dissatisfying in a lot of ways. I mean, mostly that it's just a case of it really comes down to what we talked about for the past couple episodes, which is that there is no conflict with the Xindi that you need to sort out. It's just the fact that they believe different things, and up until once you learn that they learn different things, then it just becomes a straight action sequence, which they can't even really rely, like the reptilian motivation is so flimsy because they can't spend any time on it because we only just learned that the Guardians are treated as gods in them. So the reptilian motivation, I'm assuming, is that they are supposed to be somewhat selfish, but also basically following the prophecy that they're told has to happen. So I think the show actually uninterestingly leans more on the reptilians as generic villain who wants to just become the leaders of the Xindi at that point. And there's not even a religious motivation behind what they're doing. It's just, this is what we have to do. No. So it's just a chase sequence. And once you get to that end of the chase sequence, they can't have a scene where the Xindi and the humans talk to each other because they don't have anything to say to each other. The Xindi would just go, sorry, we believed that bullshit a couple episodes ago. And Archer would go, that's all right. Like, we all believe bullshit, you know? Like,
yeah.
And you go, okay, that's fine.
If this were TNG, I feel like after they destroy those spheres and everything kind of shakes out, there would be a moment where Picard is like, well, we just destroyed your entire religion and everything that you believed in as like a higher power. But it's what it is really is a learning experience to realize to rely on yourself and not put your faith in false gods. Like there would be some sort of like resolution
summation
to that.
Yeah.
Instead, it's just like, they'll be fine.
Yeah, it's just Archer. I mean, Archer does his action sequence, and then he has to do the dead thing because they're playing on a twist here. Because the reason, and I guess it's a good place as any to get into the ending as you've done. The reason that I find the ending so frustrating and so annoying is that after we've just slogged through 24 episodes of something, it felt like the worst. It reminded me strongly of the reason that I could not watch 24 for more than a season, which is that as soon as you think something's over, they just immediately bang you with another thing to pop you back into it, and it's really tiring to me. At the end of this Xindi arc, I wanted, as you're saying, more discussion, maybe even go home naturally to like cool down a little bit, and instead it's just like World War II, alternate histories, back to it's the Grand Theft Auto San Andreas CJ meme where he's walking down the thing going, "Ah, shit, here we go again." It's like, oh my god, you guys can't even catch their breath at the end of this incredibly long and I would say mediocre season to just be like, all right, audience, like you have a chance to take your breath off, and I just take a breath. I understand that there are production reasons why they wanted to end it this way, but it's so exhausting. I found it exhausting to be like, are you kidding me? Like I have to go right into this again. Like, what is this?
I had the exact same feeling when those World War II planes showed up and started shooting the shuttlecraft. I like audibly went, because I was just tired. I felt the same way. I just wanted some sort of closure to this instead of just throwing another brick through a window and being like, all right, well, we got to go talk to these guys now. Like I was thinking about the difference between the way this ended and the way Loki ended. And I think the ending of Loki caught a lot of people off guard because it's a cliffhanger, and the other two shows that they've done have not been cliffhangers. And what I think got lost in the translation a little bit is that the ending of Loki was a cliffhanger brought about by a decision made by characters that was informed by the entire story that they've been telling up to that point. It wasn't just a cliffhanger for the sake of a cliffhanger. Whereas this feels like a fucking cliffhanger for the sake of a cliffhanger. And it's not, there's no resolution to the story they've been telling. It has, at least on the surface, nothing to do. No connection with why there's a blue guy in the Nazis now. I mean, does this mean that the Aquatics have traveled back in time with them? Because the ship brought them there. Oh. You know what I mean? Yeah, well, I don't know. There's who's to say? I don't even know when the time jump happens. Like, no idea. Nope. Because the last time they time jumped, as soon as it happens, Mayweather goes, the stars are in the wrong position because we're in the wrong time. Here, no one knows what the fuck is going on. They're not focusing on that shit, man. They're just trying to get home. Too tired. They're just, they're about to fall asleep at the wheel, but they can see the driveway. You know what I mean? That was the big problem for me. Was I felt exhausted when it happened, and I was just like, can I just end the season and have these characters maybe talk to each other for a second about what the hell has just happened here? Because jumping into this next thing is, I don't know. It's like the opposite of blue balls. It's not anticipation, but it's more like, it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, if I was watching this in real time, you'd have to wait months. And if I felt this way about the season in real time while watching it, I would say it's kind of a discovery feeling for me, where I would watch it and go, I don't want to watch this in a couple months. Like, what are they doing? Why did they end it this way? Yeah. That's really it. And just what I was touching on earlier, there's two reasons you can look at it this way, or two ways that people think about it. One is that the show was under threat of cancellation at this point, so they decided they wanted to put a cliffhanger that would make the network somewhat reluctant to cancel it in the middle of a cliffhanger like that. Okay. Kind of bullshit. The other thing that you can take away is that there's, like, if you read between the lines a little bit, this is Braga's last episode, and he knows that he's stepping away from it. And Braga is being petty to the next showrunner and saying, here's a shitty situation that you have to figure out what the hell is going on with it, right? I really hope that's not the case, because that's pretty bullshit. I think it's probably 75.
I think it's 75% them trying to come up with a cliffhanger, and I know that Berman wanted this. Berman wanted to do the entire next season as a World War II thing. He wanted the whole season to be in World War II. So
have you seen what the women wear, Brand? They're painted on the side of planes, and they're gorgeous.
Nazi bullets just tearing their uniforms to shreds.
Just think of T'Pol dressed like Marilyn Monroe for 24 episodes.
I can see Braga doing something like this. I'll have more to say about Braga and Berman, I think, when we do a wrap up for this, which I'm still planning on doing, so we won't do it now. But those are the two reasons. I don't have much else to say about the ending. Star Trek has done Nazis before. This is another return to that kind of a thing, like a literal Nazification. I guess we'll spin back a little bit. I will talk about Daniels. My problem with Daniels is that the same problem I've had with him forever. He's the worst temporal agent I've ever known.
Awful.
Because he drops a line here where my bosses would be really upset if I told you that this is the case of what's happening. But he also, it just doesn't make any sense to me how he's trying to convince Archer not to do the thing that he will do, and in the future he knows that this is how it works. He knows.
Right.
He knows that Archer saves the day and lives and everything.
How does convincing him not to do the thing that he's going to do ensure that the future timeline happens? How is that? How does that make any sense?
It makes no sense.
Because you're showing him
construction.
At the point that he's pulled him out, Archer is planning on going and blowing this thing up, right? He's planning on going to do it. So the timeline that he should be seeing is a timeline that is skewed off of him doing that. And so if he's down there, he knows if he's down there with the other guys, doing touching the orb for the Federation.
Donald Trump at the end of that line.
Yeah. God. He would probably still be alive, unfortunately.
He will be.
We did this 100 years ago. It was a great photo. But like he's done the thing in this timeline. Why is Daniels trying to convince him not to do it when Archer is looking down and going like, I can see that I don't die. So like I was trying to make sense of this. And I was thinking about the Guardians, and I was like, at least the Guardians exist in like a nebulous between timelines thing where they're just
they
walking
constantly
around.
Acknowledge that timelines can shift based on what happens to them. Yeah.
They're playing the ball where it's like every time something happens, the timeline changes slightly or something. Like they're just trying to like make sure the river doesn't split. Yeah, probability.
Yeah.
That was fine. I had no problem with that. That makes sense. The Daniel stuff makes zero sense and has especially put up against that stuff. Like it just doesn't make any logical story sense. And when you're trying to build a scene around convincing a guy not to do something when he can see if he does it, then the outcome is good. Like I don't know.
Well, it's not even. There's no acknowledgement.
Anything comes out of that scene.
There's no acknowledgement here of you can get around this stuff if you're poetic with Daniels. But Daniels has no poetry to him. He's just like Daniels has never acknowledged what the Guardians seem to understand, which is that there's this probabilistic approach to things, which is that because Daniels exists in this world where he is from the future. He knows how things are going to play out, and he feels free to come back and tell Archer about everything that happens. It's just and it's not even a learning moment where Daniels is playing Archer to teach him something. It's not like he shows up at the end and is like, this is why you should go with your gut. Or like the reason that you're so important is because you believe in yourself. And like even me trying to play dirty pool with you and cause you to knock off, you realize what you had to do. Daniels is literally just some grunt guy who shows up and is like, please don't die, Jonathan Archer. Like, the future depends on it. Oh, wait a minute. Even though I know everything about the future and could tell you all this stuff, I'm still going to act as if this is a complete surprise while you're standing down there on the pedestal after this happens. It's completely... I hate that character. I think he's terrible.
The only way that Daniels scene makes sense is if he pulls Archer aside and says, listen, everything you're doing, everything you do messes up the timeline. Like, we've, to steal a line from Loki, we've passed the threshold of what I know is going to happen. So every decision that you make is going to somehow alter the timeline in a way that I can't tell. And if you go and do this and you die, then the Federation doesn't happen. But what he's showing him is he's just showing him the literal future. And so it doesn't track that there's any sense of drama to the situation, because, I mean, if I don't know if Archer says this, I don't think he does, but he should have been like, well, I'm going to go do it. If I don't do it, does this still happen? Like, maybe if I don't do it, this doesn't happen. Maybe we only get to this point because I do it. Like, they never...
well, Archer kind of makes that point when Daniels is like, you can't do it. Archer goes, what planet are we on? And Daniel goes, Earth.
That's true.
So
yes,
I saved the day, right? I saved the day.
It's like, it worked, right? I'm planning on doing it. We're on Earth, so Earth didn't explode. I'm literally down there on that podium, holding hands and whatnot with these aliens that we've created this Federation from. You're not making a great case here, Daniels. The only thing that could have saved that scene is if Daniels turned out to be one of the Guardians or something. Len was just trying to fuck him over.
Archer should be like, I've never felt more confident in what I'm about to do. Like, I'm not even worried about this. Just yelling at the reptilian, you can't kill me. I'm alive in 6 years. See ya.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it for Daniels. I just think that time travel is tricky. Enterprise doing time travel as it's been doing is a lazy show trying to do time travel, and it's just like, what is this? Like, why are you even bothering with what this is supposed to be? Outside of that, I think the rest of the episode is stock action to me, and you know, I don't like that. I'll try to not to hold it against the show, but the show does this an awful lot. Some of the best episodes of Enterprise do not do that. Or they play on the trope like North Star, where it ends in an OK Corral shootout. It's kind of like, they're kind of playing with the fact that they do this all the time in a fun way. Other episodes don't do it, and they are remarkable for it, or they're memorable for it in the Enterprise sense. It's been a season of not much to talk about and not much to say about things that has ended in a way that Enterprise likes to lazily wrap up its stories. And I found it as a whole not to be worth the time that the season took to get to that point.
Yeah.
And
I think
what more thoughts about that?
I think talking about it now is sort of reshuffling things about it in my brain a bit, and I think I'm realizing the only reason I liked the action was because of Shran. Because I thought he was great. I thought his performance was really engaging. The stuff he was doing was a lot of fun.
He's relatively minor too. Less than anyone has forgotten what happens. He just
Not to mention, like, that's why when everybody gets back to the ship and they're like, oh yeah, Archer didn't make it off the thing, I was like, well, obviously Shran beamed him off. Like, Shran's still there, right? Unless he just left. Like that, I was like, that's what you do usually in this situation. Is it's like, oh, the thing blew up, they got out of there, they didn't get Archer, but Shran was right there, so he managed it, and he's got a stronger teleporter than what's his name, Delgado.
Better technology.
They
got a better ship. They shoot the fuck out of that reptilian ship. Yeah, it was brush Shran the whole time.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if you've got at least that way, if you end with Archer alive on Shran's ship, you at least get an interesting scene out of it.
Yeah.
Than just, World War II Nazi camp.
You didn't. I mean, yeah, I think it goes to show that the show. Obviously the show knows that Archer's not dead, but the only thing you get out of it is Paul and Phlox talking about the dog, right?
Right.
That's the extent of mourning Archer that happens in this episode. And people will argue, well, you know he can't be dead, blah blah blah, but like the characters don't know that. And all we get out of the death of the captain for this great sacrifice, there's no them drinking as a crew in the hall, mess hall or whatever. There's no reflection of remember those times with Captain Archer. It's just T'Pol pets his dog. It's like
Wes,
that's the extent of it.
Wes, if you're looking for a Star Trek show that has 10 to 15 minute sequences where the crew reminisces about a dead crew member, you're watching the wrong show. Yeah, there's another show you should be watching. But no, yeah, like that's one of the things I hate. I hate the criticism. Oh, they're not really dead. I hate that criticism because I was listening to something recently, and the person, they were talking about the Marvel movies and stuff, and they brought up the point which I made when Infinity War and whatnot came out, which was of course they're not going to stay dead. That's not the point. Like the stakes in these things are never is someone actually dead. It's always revolves around what the penalty for the actions are or what it's going to cost to bring them back. Like that's, Endgame is all about what's it cost to bring this to win. What's it cost to get the people back? Yeah. And this is just, you don't get any of that. It's just kind of like outside of that dog scene. It's not really, there's nothing built into that. And it's just I don't know.
It's why I'm not going to...
If they never do time travel on this show again, it will be too soon.
Well, we've got 2 episodes of Temporal Cold War, but I do know that they are the next 2 episodes of the season 4, and they wrap it up and they never go back to it.
Could they not at least have sent them back to the 50s or something so the Temporal Cold War could just be the literal Cold War?
It would have been a more thematic understanding of the material, I think. But I think that the reason I'm not going to really remember Enterprise is because this show chose not to have a scene where the characters talk about what it meant to lose Archer. There's no This show doesn't exist in a place where I feel that these characters actually know each other and talk to each other in any real way. That like the universe feels completely constructed, which is obvious. It is a constructed environment, but TNG, I can in my head imagine how those characters act when they're not in an like I can see the script in my head. DS9, I can see how the characters interact with each other. Enterprise, I have literally no idea what these characters would talk to each other about. If someone would say put Hoshi and Reed in a scene together, I don't know what those characters say to each other. I don't know what their general sense of being is. Even if you have something like Archer's dead, I don't know how Reed would talk about that. I don't know how Hoshi would react to that stuff. There's just platitudes. And I think that Enterprise to this point, that's the weakness of the show to me, is that even if you take away and you say that the scripts have been mediocre to bad and that the show does not seem to have a direction, I don't think the show has ever effectively built this cast to be something where I'm like, I enjoy spending time with this crew at the very least.
No. I mean, the closest that they've gotten for me recently is T'Pol and Trip. Only because they actually get to have scenes together. And, they're not doing a ton with it. They're definitely taking their sweet-ass time with that stuff. But, like, even this episode, I thought I liked that scene where she tells him his age, tells him her age. I thought that was like the last couple episodes, like when she calls him Trip for the first time was nice. This one where they have that little bit about the age was nice. You actually, has there ever been a scene like that between any 2 other characters on the show?
No.
Except for like when
Phlox
they find
and
out
Archer,
Reed,
maybe.
They find out Reed likes pineapple.
Yeah. I think Phlox and Archer are the only 2 that have had something similar to that, where they actually talk about something with each other. But no, I agree. Any other thoughts about this one? Should we go to wrap it up?
No, I think that's about it. I'm disappointed. Again, I'm disappointed that they did this time travel thing because I feel like you can do Archer might be dead, so we have to carry on without him in a way that's not such a cheat. Because I mean, I don't know. It makes me not excited to watch season 4, knowing that this is how it starts.
Yeah,
which is a bummer.
It is. It's a I don't know what the expression would be, but it's definitely. I think the other thing about it is that it's not even a completely novel, like, wow, what does that mean? You go, Nazis, like an alternate World War II history. It's like, how many times has that been done? I don't need to see this. It's just the worst. Yeah. This is the worst thing ever.
I'm sorry. Did he wake up in season 2 of Man in the High Castle or something?
Inspiration comes from everywhere. All right, let's take a break then. We'll play another clip. We'll come back. We'll read some patron thoughts and give our final thoughts about the finale for this season, 0 Hour.
DePaul.
All right. Take us to full impulse. Get us out of here.
Wait a minute, I'm almost there.
You don't have a minute, Commander.
And give me 10 seconds, I'm telling you I've got it.
That's it. Time's up.
It sure is.
Thank you very much for listening to the show. Thank you for watching all of Season 3 with us, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. 0 Hour was the episode that we just covered. And as always, if you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/thepenskyfile. It's the best way to do it. We're over our Voyager goal now, so we'll be covering every single Voyager episode when we get to that series. Thank you for your support. Thank you for making that possible. And as always, I guess you should say, well, you get a Patreon. Patreon has all the extra podcasts. A couple dollars a month, you get extra podcasts. You get the ability to vote in the polls. You get access to the Discord, the special Discord room for the captains. Captains get early access to all the podcast episodes by a day or two. So if that interests you and you want to support the show, patreon.com/thepenskyfile. Continue it through season 4 of Enterprise, and then we'll probably be moving to Voyager. But things are up in the air at this point.
We got to come up with a new goal.
I know. I can't think of anything. We've run out of Star Trek series.
What is there left to do?
Let us know. Become a patron and message me.
And we wept when we looked upon our works and saw that there were no Star Trek left to conquer.
And as always, a special thank you to our Captain Tier supporters. A very special thanks go to Tariq Latif, Samuel Custer, Joint Mango, Kyle Barrett, Mike Burnett, Andrew Turlog, Matt Ross, Michael Pond, Christian Pouch, Matt Cutler, Nick Sergey, Grim Santos, Sean Cardinal, Doomsday, Bradley Killens, Dwayne Hackett, Kevin Reyes of All 13 Hero, Jordan Cooper, Russell Elge, Darth Mosk, HH28, Stephen Minton, Derek Zajac, Paulo Roscoe, Jacob123, Poindexter G, Patrick Seba, Dave Davies, Johnny Franceschi, Mike Harris, Captain Brazen, Eric Sanjuan, Jakey's Gamer, Kevin Lowry, Corey Martin, William Schleisler, Nick the Rat, Disbrada, Rayhan Jaffer, Ed Mark Starr, Grapple John Zorn, Soylent Blues, A Majors, Olivier Pardue, Retail, Tom Hickey, Jose Hunters, EWNF Remixes, Captain McMunchausen, James McLennan, Beal Lokai, Jonas, Tommy Tango, Tuvix Must Die, Dennis Seifert, Chris McLaughlin, and Mutilated Puppet. Thank you very much, everybody, for supporting the show. Much appreciated. You guys are the reason that the show continues. So thanks, everybody. Mm-hmm. Patron comments. All right, there's 11 of them. Maybe less. I think there's 11. Matt Ross says, okay, now you need 5 IDs to close, to fire closer. Doesn't matter.
What are they?
He's too busy to even launch a missile.
What are they, trying to vote?
I just think of the, it's not the Missouri Compromise. What was there was like the 3/5 of a person for blacks in the South, right? Wasn't that some kind of compromise that they made for before the Civil War? Yeah.
Yes.
That's the only thing 3/5 ever reminds me of is the Civil War. It doesn't matter. Earth was too busy to even launch a missile after he hit a partial character regression. And an exposition. Was that? Let me see if I understand my history right. So that was to provide for senators before the Civil War, right? So they wanted to count people who couldn't vote as population to determine congressional representation, right? That must be what it's for.
I don't remember, but if I had to guess, it does sound like manipulation in order to benefit voting, yes, in some sense.
Yeah. It's sad. I don't know specifically. I assume that's what it was. After we get a partial character regression and an exposition dump as to why they're on the mission, we get Daniels, the absolute worst temporal agent ever. Then it's Archer with fist-fighting action and your usual countdowns. Although it was a neat effect to see the ball go boom, it followed up by the biggest fuck you I've ever seen in Trek at that time with the BS time travel. The Aquatics didn't notice the wrong time period, and Trip still thinks there's a Starfleet landing pad while P-51s are attacking the shuttle pod. 2 stop it, damn it, out of 5.
The compromise counted 3/5 of each state's slave population toward that state's total population for the purpose of apportioning the House of Representatives.
Yeah. But they couldn't vote at all. They just wanted to, wanted the population.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess that seems like a bad idea. Although that was what they agreed on, right? Wasn't that the agreement that they came down to? I don't know how that flies.
I mean, it doesn't make it great, but
no.
Lots of bad stuff has been agreed to over the years in this country.
Yeah, I don't. What's the advantage to the northern states? I don't know what they got out of it. Anyway, I guess I should read the history about that. Kyle Barrett says 0 hour over the past few episodes.
$1,500. We'll do a deep dive on Civil War era Constitution and voting rights.
Pre-Civil War era. Over the past few episodes, the Xindi arc has been simplified to the point where our heroes have to blow up a couple of big space balls and kill the evil lizard men to save Earth and the wider galaxy, like a David Icke. Is it Icke? Do you know that name? I-C-K-E?
Oh, I think it's Ike.
Ike. Like a David Icke wet dream. Admittedly, as an action episode, it's great fun and totally bonkers. The fulfilled revenge Reed feels as he sees the weapon explode is the sweetest thing he's tasted since that time he managed to come in his own mouth. By then, we get the terrible cliffhanger, which may have saved the show from cancellation, but is also Braga, now knowing Kodo will replace him as showrunner next season, leaving the promoted writer with a purposefully stupid ending as a personal fuck you. I have to take a whole point off for that dumb denouement alone. 3 out of 5.
Did Brandon Braga watch the end of Twin Peaks and go, I've got it. This is what we do. Cliffhanger that we don't answer for 25 years. Just in case it gets canceled. We want to leave people talking about it.
Yeah. I thought I squarely pin the blame on what happened to the show to Braga. I think it's his fault for what the show turned out to be. From the oral history and just the way that it worked and everything like that. He didn't, I don't think he was ever interested in this show and was just doing it to do it. And I think that the product kind of shows that energy. Royo says, 0 hour. As I said about Countdown, Enterprise has regressed to the level of a 1940s sci-fi serial, and nothing is more indicative of that than Archer's capture by the bloody Nazis. I'm glad you guys covered Omega Glory because there will be a lot of parallels as the Nazis that Archer will face off against are literal circa 1944 Nazis. There's no metaphor anymore. Every past use of the Nazis in Star Trek was to engage in the idea of the Nazis and to engage that concept intellectually within the story. But with Enterprise, Season 4 will begin as dime store trash. They must save Earth from literal Nazis. As for the earlier parts of the episodes, the fight to destroy the Doomsday Machine felt very TOS, and thus was serviceable as a Star Trek episode. Unfortunately, the temporal Cold War bull hockey has tripped up the Xindi arc at the finishing line, foreshadowing how TNG will somehow trip up Enterprise's series finale at the finishing line. While Season 4 will mark a substantial improvement of the show, it starts and ends as complete trash. 2 out of 5.
If I was Manny Kodo, I would have thrown it right back in Braga's face and just been like, we're not answering this question. We're going to start off. Everybody's back to normal next season. And they're going to talk about it.
They just ignore it.
Yeah, they're going to talk about it and be like, man, that was wild. But we're never going to see how they got back. We're just going to know that they're back and everybody's fine and we're on to the next mission.
Yeah. I have not seen it, but I know that the sense is that the way that Kodo returns the favor is that he will wrap things up brutally in the next episode to be like, we're done with this. I'm not talking about this anymore.
Good.
So, Point Extra G says, splitting up the cast and giving everyone something to do is really key to this sort of story. They do that here, and it works great. The finale of the year-long Xindi arc comes off as quite an exciting and well-put-together ending. I can even forgive the Shran Ex Machina. 5 out of 5. Oh, wait, I forgot about the alien Nazis, of course. There's alien Nazis. A 4 out of 5, I guess. Latte Librarian.
Season 4 opens with Archer waking up on Shran's ship and going, man, I just had a wild dream where the Nazis took over and somehow we ended up back in 1945. And that's it. That's all you do.
It's just a freeze frame on a laugh, yeah. Latte Librarian says, 0 Hour, Shrine to the Rescue was fun, and overall this is a fine episode. I thought T'Pol's reaction to being compared to an old oil painting was out of character, since Vulcans seem beyond buying anti-wrinkle cream. At only 66, no less. The ending is dumb. 3 explosions out of 5. Yeah, I think that T'Pol stuff is charming. I think that that's... The show isn't... I can't speak to it. I don't know how this relationship continues, but to me, the reason you would do this storyline is to explore a relationship between a normal human in Trip and a sort of autistic person in T'Pol, like emotionally autistic. You know, like there's a...
Sure.
They've never really engaged with this idea of what it would mean to be a human who's married to a Vulcan or like in a relationship with a Vulcan.
Right, yeah.
Sarek has human wives, but they always hand wave it off as like, we know he loves us. Like, you don't have to, don't worry about it. Like, we just know this is, but there's something deeper and more strange.
That's just
about
what he's
that
into.
relationship. Just, it doesn't want to show it.
Yeah.
Just wants to sit on the couch.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad that they don't. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they do in season 4, but yeah, I wish the underpinning of this relationship was not space drugs.
Yeah, the space drugs and just... I think it's a mistake in building this relationship, which is ultimately due to space drugs, but to crack T'Pol as the way that you do it, to ruin her, to weaken her as a Vulcan character is the only way that this relationship can play out, because I much prefer a strong Vulcan and a human who's infatuated with her. I think that's a more interesting story for those two.
Yeah, I agree.
Christian Pouch says, 0 Hour, it's not good. The action is okay at best, and the whole episode is disjointed. The sphere plot has no urgency beyond the artificial ticking clock, and the weapon plot is by the numbers. Both end abruptly. Finally, Trek has a weird fetish about Nazi villains sometimes, and it's such a bizarre left turn that makes no sense with the rest of the episode. Even Shran can't save it. Hot take 1 out of 5. A wide variety of opinions here on 0 Hour.
Yeah.
Grappler John Zorn says, say what you want about Enterprise, Archer, or the Xindi arc. By the time it's all finished, they will not only have saved Earth, but they will save the Xindi and the Vulcans, and the Sphere Builder threat to the galaxy, make an ally of both Silic and the New York mob, clean up the Delphic Expanse, reset the timeline, end the temporal Cold War, and stick it to the goddamn Nazis for good measure. Suck it, Alex Kurtzman. I'll take Angry Archer not earning his plot points over weepy goddamn everybody not earning theirs any day of the week. 3-gallon jugs of Lubriderm out of 5. Rayhan Jaffer says, I won't comment on the conclusion of the Xindi arc, as we're all thinking the same thing. So instead, I'll focus on the subplot with T'Pol and the Blender. What the hell happened there? Did a random page end up in the script? Julian Blaylock seemed embarrassed to be on screen while holding it. According to Memory Beta, the Blender has its own non-canon novel to explain its origins, but for those of us not interested in reading it, we'll just have to live with the mystery of the Blender. 4 inexplicable NutriBullets out of 5.
What the hell is he talking about?
It's another Discord joke right there. People can join the Discord if they want access to understanding Ray's.
In jokes bleeding into the... what is going on here?
Next comment is Nick the Rat says, 0 Hour, why weren't the Vulcans there to assist? Why is Archer such a jerk to Hoshi? Why did they cross Star Trek with Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Phlox and Trip and a little T'Pol continue to be the high points of the show. 4 out of 5 for an Enterprise episode, a low 3 for Star Trek.
Great question. Well, I guess they didn't really have time to call reinforcements at that point, because they just wormhole out right within
the Vulcans you're talking about.
Yeah, I guess they didn't really have time to, because I did think that too. I was like, why don't they radio or send a message back to Earth and be like, guys, send some help up here. Yeah.
You'd have think they'd have amassed a defense fleet or something. There's really nothing standing between Earth and that.
I guess they try. I think they tried to contact Earth on a certain signal or something, but I don't know if it was because they blew up that space station or what. But I don't know.
Yarpy says, 0 Hour, pretty good ending to the season and story arc, and the episode had its own problems with pacing. The cliffhanger ending was very much a what the fuck moment when I saw it the first time. Alien Nazis. I wonder if they inserted the alien Nazi ending trying to force the network to pick up a 4th season, as the fans would have gone bonkers if they'd have ended it with that. 4 stars out of 5.
I mean, why don't you just give Archer 2 heads or something? Well,
Yeah.
They could have done if that was the reasoning, they could have done literally anything.
Yep. Yeah. T'Pol comes in and says, "I'm pregnant." It cuts to black. It's like, what happened?
The last scene is Phlox and T'Pol talking about Porthos, and then Porthos looks at them and goes, "T'Pol, it's me, Jonathan." And that's the end of the show.
That's not bad. I can't top it. I'm just thinking of random, like, you cut to a scene with, like, Phlox standing over Hoshi laying on the ground bloody, and he's got a bloody knife in his hand, and it just cuts to black, and it's like, join us for season 4 to learn about why Phlox murdered Hoshi. I would have done that. Yeah. Cardinal Doomsday with the final comments is 0 hour. If the sphere builders are powerful enough to board the Enterprise and deplete the ship's energy, why is it taking them this long to do it? Well, they had to wait for the space to become jelly-like, whatever that place they can exist in to allow them to do things to it. Thank you very much, patrons, for your comments. That's it for this season of Enterprise. We're done with another season, Clay. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I was just thinking, based off that last thing, a great podcast. I don't know if you could get multiple shows out of it, but a good episode would be covering all of the post-credit sequences in movies that never got sequels.
Sure.
So that because so many movies set things up now, and so many of them don't end up ever actually paying them off. Right. That everybody trying to do the Marvel thing, that you end up getting these like wackadoo cliffhangers that just never get paid off. I'm thinking specifically of the post-credit scene in X-Men. I think it's the X-Men: The Last Stand, where early in the movie Charles Xavier gets exploded by Phoenix. Well, I shouldn't call her Phoenix. That's an insult to the name. But by Jean Grey, and then at the end. In Scotland, Moira McTaggart has this like homeless guy in the hospital who turns out to have the mind of Charles Xavier inside of him.
Yeah.
And it was like, what? Charles, that's you? And that's the end of the movie. And they never paid it off, never went back to talk about it. Everything's just, he's back to normal when they shows up again in Days of Futures Past.
Just ignore it. It's not worth thinking about. Thank you, patrons,
yes,
for leaving your thoughts. Thank you for supporting the show.
End of the season. End of the season. We hit another one. I was hoping I'd be a little bit more energized going into season 4, but the Nazis and aliens are not doing it for me as of yet.
Yeah, we'll probably save we'll do a season wrap up for this one. I think that's worthwhile, even if it's short, just to go over everything that we've done. It'll give us a little bit of breathing room too for the next season. Ignoring all that, what are you going to give this one on our scale of 1 to 5, closing out Enterprise's 3rd season with 0 hour?
Coming into it, I would have given it a 3, but after talking about it, I think I'm going to give it a 2.
Yeah. I think it's a 2 for me as well. Yeah. Not really, like, as we got towards the end of this, I was just like, let's get this over with. Gentlemen, let's just wrap this thing up. I think this show is... this idea has run out of gas. And, yeah, getting to that point at the very end, it just felt like it was traditional Enterprise stuff. It's a lot of action that I shut my brain off for and watch and go, looks like early 2000s network TV stuff like this. Like, it's even, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't grab me. And I don't think that the show has done character work to this point where you can even approach it from a character perspective. So I'm left with, I'm not sure what's left. If it's just a chase sequence and there's nothing else to the plot, I don't really know what I'm supposed to get out of it. So I'm going to give it a 2. You'll give it a 2 as well. And that's it. We're done with the season 3.
Big 4 to 5 for Shran, but not enough to bolster the whole episode, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's in it for so little. He really he defends the ship, and that's it, and shoots the reptilians, and calls it a day there. But it is good to see him.
He shows up in a very contrived manner, and then he just disappears when the action's over. So
yeah,
he was there to service the plot, I guess.
He'll be back. That's it. New showrunner next season. Braga is gone. Berman is pretty much neutralized. And we have Manny Koto running the show. And next season is going to be a lot of short 2 or 3 episode mini arcs that they do. So the episodes are kind of like 3-parters for most of the season. A lot of closing the gap between Enterprise and TOS is done. It's a kind of continuity thing that they focus on quite strongly. We'll see how we feel about it compared to what Enterprise
Always
did before.
Always a good choice.
Always
Let's find out what happened to the Wookiees in between episode 3 and episode 4. We got to make sure all those loose ends are tied up.
That's the fear. Let's see how they do it. People generally...
We got to see the handoff of the babies. We got to see when Bail Organa gets the baby.
People generally seem to like season 4, I think.
Sure.
They said that about season 3, too. I don't know. Season 4 is also extremely short, so we'll be done with it pretty quickly. There's also two-parters in it, and we're going to be doing those as one episode, so we cut down on the episode count even more doing it that way.
Okay.
But we'll see. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for listening. We both give it a 2 out of 5 for 0 Hour. We're done. Patreon.com/ThePenskeFile if you want to support the show there. Otherwise, ThePenskeFile.com has all the podcasts. You can go there. It's on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. I don't think I have much else to say. What do you have to say?
This being August, Amanda and I will be talking about, or have talked about, Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, in our continuing Patreon series about the Friday the 13th movies. This one is a doozy, so check it out. And is this going to be up after the 13th, do you think?
This will be up after the 13th.
Okay. Well, I hope you all enjoyed the live stream we did on Friday the 13th in August.
You've been talking about it in the past couple episodes, so they will be aware of it.
Good. Yes.
But the 13th will have passed. I think it'll be of last week, if I'm remembering properly what we did.
And we've got Badass. We're a little bit over the halfway point of season 4. And regular Rotten Horror Picture Show. We've got American Werewolf in London coming up pretty soon, I think. It might already be out at this point. So, yeah, check it out.
Sounds good. All the shows, PenskeFile.com. You can find them on all the podcast places as well. YouTube, if you're so inclined to watch them on YouTube. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. We're done with another season. One more season of Enterprise to get through, and then we're done with Enterprise. I shouldn't say get through. One more season to wrap up this series, the shortest of the Star Trek series, the only one to be canceled at this point in time. Still don't know what we're doing. I guess by the time you guys listen to this, you'll know what we're doing with Lower Decks and things like that. But we'll see. I still haven't decided at this point.
I've told you that for the longest time, the final episode of Enterprise was the only one I've ever watched. Right?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it all the way through. I don't think. Maybe I have, but yeah, that's the only one. Do you remember it at all?
I remember. You
must remember the big thing about it. Yeah,
I do. I remember the big thing about it, but everything else that was pertaining to Enterprise didn't mean anything to me when I watched it, so I don't remember any of that stuff.
Sure.
I know somebody dies. That's what I can't remember who.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but it takes place during a specific TNG episode too.
Yes,
so it might be worth rewatching that one as a rewatch before we get to it. That's it, guys. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you later.